He scrubbed floors quietly while distant. Signals pulsed his heartbeat across the stars. Nobody inside the downtown Civic Hall suspected the lean man pushing a squeaky mop bucket was anything but ordinary. His badge displayed Carl. His coveralls carried a bleach mark over the chest, and his lunchbox always carried the faint scent of peanut butter. Beyond the cracked tiles he polished, each night a greater world had been watching him. Years ago, when Earth was still stumbling with crude rockets, Carl was drawn into a program so secret even leaders were denied its files. He was selected for his intellect and his strange resilience to things others couldn't endure: crushing gravity swings, blinding spectrums, and the murmur of tongues no human mouth could form. He vanished into that mission for years, reappeared under a false name, and slipped unnoticed into the workforce as though he was no one. Now the outsiders had arrived. They did not land with celebrations or issue speeches on the White House lawn. Instead, they slid into orbit unseen, hidden from human sensors, their vessels humming like a single low note in the atmosphere. First, none observed them, but Carl did. He always felt them brushing the edges of thought, like static behind a radio. That night, as he leaned his mop aside and fastened the strap of his lunchbox, the signal struck harder than ever, shook his bones. He stood straight, heart pounding, and whispered, "So you finally came." Hours later, news outlets reported strange events in the skies. Pilots insisted dark shapes tracked them faster than any jet. Astronomers swore stars were blocked in patterns too precise. Governments rushed to react, but their orders were hijacked and twisted before reaching satellites. The invaders were in control. In a chamber above Earth, alien leaders argued about seizing what they called the hidden subject. To them, Carl was no cleaner. He was the last living remnant of a project that had once endangered their empire. Human who had endured their tech and adapted rather than breaking. Carl, meanwhile, was only finishing work. He swung his lunchbox over his shoulder and stepped into the way. His phone buzzed. An unknown. Only the insignia of a program so secret most of its members had been erased from history. Beside it rested objects that to ordinary eyes looked like odd tools, yet in Carl's grasp hummed with memory. He set each piece on the table. His pulse was steady. He didn't hurry. He had always known this hour would come, even if he prayed it never would. Outside his window, the night turned unnatural. The stars bent as though the sky itself shifted. Civilians recorded videos, but their streams cut out, seized by alien jammers. Panic spread in low voices across neighborhoods, though most still had no idea what lurked above. Underground war rooms, leaders shouted into dead microphones demanding reports, but their voices never left Earth. Only Carl's beacon had. Hours later, military trucks braked outside his building. Troops in unmarked armor stormed the airs. Their captain hammered the door. "Mr. Harlan," he said, using Carl's forgotten name, "we're ordered to escort you." Carl opened slowly, device glowing in his hand. "Too late. They already know where I am. Take me and they'll target you too." The captain stared at the shimmering box, eyes widening. "So it's true. The archive wasn't lost." Carl shook his head. "Not lost. Hidden. Now it listens again." At that instant, the building shook as a deep vibration rolled through the street. People screamed outside. Soldiers raised rifles. A vast shadow swept overhead, swallowing the stars. Subtlety was gone. They were coming straight for him. The captain muttered, "We can't stand against that." Carl's face stayed calm. He lifted another relic from the case. Shaped like a broken mirror in black metal. He angled it upward. It thrummed, projecting a lattice of shifting lines. A web of light encasing the room. This place is hidden, Carl said. For now. The lattice pulsed, then expanded unseen. Over the city, the alien ship jolted as struck. Their sensors drowned in static. They saw every block except the one they wanted. To them the street itself vanished. Commanders shrieked, slamming claws on consoles. They had misjudged him. Inside, the captain lowered his rifle. Son, what did you do? Carl leaned heavily on the table, sweat on his brow. I shifted us outside their pattern. Recognition. To them this place doesn't exist. But it won't hold forever. He set the glowing device back in its cradle. We'll have to move. There are stations I buried when I thought this day would never come. Soldiers exchanged uneasy look. You mean there are more? Carl nodded. 5. And together they can do more than hide. They can strike back. Above Earth, alien fleets closed ranks, dropping smaller craft into the sky. Civilians, they looked like meteor showers, dozens streaking downward. Truth, they were hunters sent to capture Carl alive. But as they fell, ancient towers hidden under seas and deserts answered his relay. Plumes of power erupted unseen. Across salt flats, stone plates shifted, revealing antennas rising. For the first time in 50 years, humanity had not forgotten its lone survivor. It had buried his legacy deep into Earth's bones. Carl, clutching the cracked mirror, whispered as he followed soldiers down the stairwell. They think I'm only a man, but I'm something they created by mistake, something they fear because I carry their seed reshaped into ours. The captain said nothing, but his eyes betrayed the truth. The world thought it had a janitor. What it had was a key. The aliens circling above were about to learn how dangerous one man could be with their own designs turned against them. The convoy tore through empty streets as if hunted by shadows. But the shadows were real, streaking overhead in alien light. Carl sat in the lead jeep, his old suitcase on his lap, hands resting on the mirror and the glowing core. Soldiers whispered, stealing glances at the man who yesterday mopped floors and tonight carried Earth's fate. They didn't know what name to give him, Carl, Harlan, or something beyond human, but they all felt the strange calm around him. Calm born not of pride but of certainty. Their radios were dead under alien jamming, but the streets spoke for them. Windows rattled, children cried as parents pulled them inside. Power lines buzzed with an energy no longer human. The convoy reached the edge of the city, where an abandoned factory loomed like a skeleton in the night. Carl pointed. There, he said, and the soldiers obeyed without pause. Inside, under rusted beams and shattered skylights, Carl strode to a far corner, brushed away decades of dust, and revealed a metal hatch etched with woven patterns. He placed the mirror against it and spoke a phrase in a tongue that bent the air. They won't be back anytime soon. They fear what we're capable of now, the captain who had once sought him out said. And what becomes of you? Carl glanced at his bare hands again. Only a man. I returned to mopping floors. That's what I've always done. Someone has to restore order once the storm ends. The captain almost protested, but the truth lay in Carl's weary smile. Humanity had prevailed, not through soldiers or weapons, but through the overlooked man who carried a hidden key long enough to use it when the world cried out for it. Weeks later, the skies cleared, governments reconnected, and life staggered back toward routine. In a modest civic hall downtown, a thin figure rolled his mop bucket across polished tiles, humming under his breath. Strangers walked past without notice, never knowing the stars shone freely above because of him. He didn't mind. He preferred it that way. Let the world believe he was just a janitor. That was the truth he chose. And in the quiet corridors, the faint echo of the grid still whispered in the walls, like a heartbeat, patient, waiting, should it ever be called upon again.